In 2019, we spent the year as a church at Paulsgrove Baptist Church laying out the foundations, setting the foundations for what would become our new church vision. And we spent time through our Sunday teaching, through training of our leadership teams and in our ministry teams, and through informal discussion, really, trying to work out what is the direction that God wanted us to go in. And the theme that was coming throughout that year was the theme of discipleship. This year in January 2020, we formally launched that vision with a statement and a series of teaching through the month of January on Sundays, a set of 4 talks which encapsulated what our vision as a church is, who we are and what we wanted to become. The interesting is, in conversation with people at church since that time, many people have struggled to actually articulate the vision statement and the strapline. Now, in one sense, that's not a terrible thing, because you might well be living out that vision in the way that you are playing out your Christian life anyway. However, the really profitable thing about having a strapline and a statement is that actually what you can do is you can clarify in a very, very simple way what it is that we are and what we're trying to become. And so it's useful, I think, to learn it, to know it, and to really digest the values that are part of that vision, so that we can all be working in the same direction. So here, I'm going to give you that strapline and the logo once again. And here it is. Growing lifelong disciples of Jesus Christ by being a Christian, caring community. In these sort of strange times, where we're not able to meet as a church together as one large group, we continue with that vision. Nothing changes in terms of seeking to be lifelong disciples of Jesus Christ. Nothing changes in terms of us being a Christian church or a caring church or a community of God's people. What would be really great to do during these next few months, when you might have a little bit more time to really think that through, is I would really encourage you to go back and have a look, listen to the talks, the 4 talks, and have a look back through the values that we are trying to work out as a church. If you go to our website, you'll see on our website, along the sort of menu bar at the top there, the Who Are We tab. And as you click on that and have a look down at the drop-down menu, you'll see a page called Vision and Values. On that page, you'll have the 4 talks embedded in the page for you to be able to watch again and to digest and to think through. And also a list of the values that are attached to the various aspects of our vision. And I want you, if you're a member, a part of, a regular attender of PBC, I want you to be thinking and praying through, what does it mean right now for you to be a lifelong disciple of Jesus Christ? What does it mean for you, for example, to hold the Word of God in such a high authority? What does it mean for you to depend on the Father through prayer? What does it mean for you to have the cross, Christ crucified, as central to your life? What does it mean, for example, for you to be humble in your attitude towards those around you in your house or those you're connected with on social media? What does it mean to be a servant of others? What does it mean to look outwards so that actually your faith is making a difference to those around you that you're connecting with? I want you to think that through for yourself, and see how it is completely relevant, whatever life looks like, whether we're able to meet freely in public or not. Actually, our vision is the same. What we started at the beginning of this year in our course called The Course of Your Life, we started to run a course thinking about God's agenda for the world and for us as Christians, and also then to be working in groups of 2 and 3 to do some discipling of each other to grow our faith. I read a little extract from a book, and I repeated it recently, but I'd like to read it to you now, because I think it is quite prophetic for our times. As elders, over 2018 and 2019, as we were thinking and praying and reading about what God's direction for us as a church might be, we were reading through the book The Trellis and the Vine. And the very, very last section of the book, as it talks about a disciple-making church, and how actually we want to try and get away from people becoming or being consumers and just turning up to things and relying on groups all the time, but actually being disciples and disciple makers. This is the last illustration in the whole book, and I think it's very relevant for us. Imagine this, they write. As we write, the first worrying signs of a swine flu pandemic are making headlines around the world. Now, this book was written in 2009. Imagine that the pandemic swept through your part of the world and that all public assemblies of more than 3 people were banned by the government for reasons of public health and safety. Sound familiar? And let's say that due to some catastrophic combination of local circumstances, this ban had to remain in place for 18 months. Let's see. How would your congregation of 120 members continue to function with no regular church gatherings of any kind and no home groups, except for groups of 3? If you were the pastor, what would you do? I guess you could send regular letters and emails to your people. You could make phone calls and maybe even do a podcast. But how would the regular work of teaching and preaching and pastoring take place? How would the congregation be encouraged to persevere in love and good deeds, especially in such trying circumstances? And what about evangelism? How would new people be reached, contacted and followed up? There could be no men's breakfast, no coffee mornings, no evangelistic courses or outreach meetings. Nothing. You could, of course, revert to the ancient practice of visiting your congregation house to house and door knocking in the local area to contact new people. Of course, that's not possible in our situation. But how as a pastor could you possibly meet with and teach all 120 adults in your congregation, let alone their children? Let alone door knock the suburb, let alone follow up the contacts that you made? No. If this was to be done, you would need help. You would need to start with 10 of your most mature Christian men and meet intensively with them 2 at a time for the first 2 months, while keeping in touch with everyone else by phone and email. You would train these 10 in how to read the Bible and pray with 1 or 2 other people and with their children. Their job would then be twofold: to pastor their wives and families through regular Bible teaching and prayer, and to each meet with 4 other men to train and encourage them to do the same. Assuming that 80% of your congregation was married, then through these first 10 men and those that they would subsequently train, most of the married adults involved in regular Bible-based encouragement. While that was getting going, with you offering phone and email support along the way, you might choose another bunch to train personally, people who could meet with singles, or people who had the potential in door knocking and evangelism, or people who would be good at following up new contacts. It would be a lot of personal contact and a lot of one-to-one meetings to fit in. But remember, there will be no services to run, no committees, no parish council, no seminars, no home groups, no working bees. This book's Australian. In fact, no group activities or events of any kind to organise, administer, drum up support for or attend. Just personal teaching and discipling, and training your people in turn to be disciple makers. And here's the interesting question. After 18 months, when the ban was lifted and you were able to recommence Sunday gatherings and all the rest of the meetings and activities of church life, what would you do differently? Well, there's so many similarities to the example given there with the situation that we're currently in. And I think it's quite interesting that actually we began a work of grouping people in 2s and 3s who now can't necessarily meet together, but are meeting, whether that's over WhatsApp, group discussions, and still doing their discipling work, even though we're not physically able to be together. And we thank God that actually He's given us this vision that doesn't stop even through these times that we can't meet together. I want us to think about how church can look and how we can grow together through this time. I want us to remember and think about the lessons we can learn from elsewhere. Let's think about what Christians in China are doing and how they've responded, because for the last few months they've been in a situation of lockdown. Listen to some of these quotes from people in China itself and in Wuhan province of what God has been showing them. Here's a quote from someone. "During this time of isolation, I read the Bible without stopping for 10 days, and I could not stop reading about God's forgiveness and love for me." Here's another one who says this: "We're often too busy to spend time with God prior to this crisis. Now we are taking this time to do more self-reflection and praying to God." How are you using your time at the moment? Are you using your time to draw closer to God and to go deeper with Him, to rely on the grace of God through His Word and by His Spirit? I wonder whether actually we're learning lessons, or we should be learning lessons about how busy we can get doing, when God wants us to be people who are being His children and growing more into His likeness. Let's remember also the persecuted church, the many Christians across the world who can never meet freely at all with other Christians. Open Doors is one of our mission partners, and in fact over this past month they've been our mission partner of the month. And perhaps if you've been using our prayer diary, you will have prayed for those that are suffering for their faith in various countries. Let's remember and learn from their example of how their faith is growing in trying circumstances. I know many of you are using social media and online resources to grow your faith and stay connected with each other, and I encourage you to do that and to use that well where you can, through our YouTube channel, through keeping in touch with each other, through apps on your phone, maybe YouVersion. I even came across something called Psalms and Stretches, which you can go online and do a bit of exercise and learn some psalms. It's great. But I also encourage you to take breaks. Take social media breaks and slow down. Sometimes the bombardment of so much coming at us can actually make you even more frazzled than in normal life. So take breaks, read, pray, breathe, and learn to relax and to enjoy God more. This is our discipleship agenda as a church, and I encourage you to get on board, to grow, and to know God more through this.